Hello and welcome to NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi, coming to you from the seventh wonder of the world. This is the magical Masai Mara National Reserve, located to the southwest of Kenya and bordering Tanzania. Masai Mara is one of the world's key tourist attractions thanks to its abundance of incredible wildlife. It is also home to Kenya's largest population of lions, and this is why we're here. Part 1 of African Cats, a documentary by Keith Sholey and Alistair Fothergill, aired on the NTV Wild series. Filmed in Kenya's Masai Mara National Reserve, the documentary captures the incredible life stories of two cat families. Sita, a mother cheetah with 5 cubs, and Mara, a lion cub whose parents, Layla and Fang, are the aging rulers of their pride. African Cats is a true story of love, determination, survival, and ultimately the circle of life. Today, though, Kenya's cats are a population under threat. So NTV Wild is in the Masai Mara to explore some of these threats and to find out what's being done to protect these most precious creatures. Our day started out with a game drive to find some of the Masai Mara's big cats. Within minutes, our guides Jackson and John Mark spot a cheetah family consisting of a female and her 3 cubs. After their feast, they moved on, and we followed. The next sight both incredible and endearing. Curious cheetah cubs trying to climb a shrub to get a better vantage point. Some successful in their mission, and others not so. We've spent the last few minutes looking at these amazing cheetahs, 1 mum and 3 cubs. And then as we were driving around, we came across this vehicle that said the Mara Cheetah Project. So I'm really curious to find out more about it. What does the project mean and how are they perhaps helping the cheetahs? So we've now ambushed Femka, who's sitting in this vehicle. Femka, thanks so much for agreeing to speak with us. What is the Mara Cheetah Project all about?
So the Mara Cheetah Project was set up by the Kenyan Wildlife Trust in 2013 because there's a concern that cheetahs in the Masai Mara and in the Serengeti are declining, and actually globally they're declining. So people think there's about 7,500 cheetahs left, but nobody really knows. So the project is really, the aim is to try and find out more about the cheetahs in the Mara, and then through research, but we've also got a community project.
What's causing the decline and why are they under threat?
One of the major threats really for a species like the cheetah is that they've got huge home ranges, so they come into a lot of conflict with humans, so human-wildlife conflict and habitat loss is probably one of the major threats.
You were also watching the same cheetahs that we were. You know them personally, so who are these cheetahs? What are their names?
So the female that you guys were watching this morning, her name is Musiara, and the reason being that the first time that we'd actually sighted her was in the Musiara area. And she's got 3 cubs at the moment, which is great because we've actually seen her pregnant quite a few times over the last 2.5 years, and she's just never managed to raise any cubs.
Yeah, because our viewers have just actually watched African Cats on NTV Wild, and Sita was the cat that featured in there. So what's the relationship between some of the cats that you are following and Sita?
So this is actually the daughter of Sita, and she was born around 2012. So we've known her pretty much from when she was young, and it's great to see her first litter now. So.
Where's Sita?
No idea actually. I have a feeling she's not around anymore. Cheetahs on average live to about the age of 12, but they also, they have massive ranges, so occasionally we'll see cheetahs and then they'll disappear, and about a year later they'll pitch up again.
So what do the numbers look like now, let's say specifically to the Masai Mara, because that's where we are? What's the cheetah population?
The cheetah population in the Mara compared to other areas in Africa is actually really good. So in the Masai Mara, so now I'm talking about the reserve, the conservancies and the triangle, it's about an area of about 2,500 square k's, and we know the density or the number of cheetahs at any given time is about 32 adults. Definitely a lot of threats here. If you go outside the Masai Mara, there's a lot of people, a lot of livestock, a lot of fences coming up. There's potentially a problem with disease as well. There can be transmission of diseases from livestock to wildlife and vice versa. So it's definitely a population that's under threat.
What else needs to happen to protect these cats?
Definitely raising awareness is one thing. We know a lot about other species, but in comparison, very little is actually known about cheetahs. And then always working with the communities. I think if you don't work with the communities, you'll never be able to conserve an ecosystem or species. We've got 2 cheetahs with GPS collars as well, so we can actually monitor them when they're going out into the community areas. And the cheetahs actually spend a significant amount of time in the communities.
Once you track them, then how do you bring them back? What use is the collar?
With those collars, we can see what kind of habitat they're using. We can see exactly where they're going, how important are the wildlife areas to protecting cheetahs, how much time do they spend outside the wildlife areas, and how is, for example, the increasing human population affecting their movement and their ecology.
How old is this family in terms of their ages, the mum and the cubs as well?
I think 10 months now, which is a good age, and I'm impressed that she's managed to raise 3 to this age actually, because quite often cheetahs will have litters of about 6, and they tend to lose most of their cubs, which is natural. It's usually due to lions, hyenas, but also birds of prey or disease, or in some cases if there's not much prey around, then cheetahs will abandon their cubs.
Femke, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us. All right, with me that was Femke. She works with the Kenya Wildlife Trust for the Mara Cheetah Project. We continue the game drive, this time to search for the king of the jungle. Eventually we find a huge, healthy and beautiful pride of lions. The adults laze and catch a snooze, but the cubs, like any kids, want playtime. This is the Ridge Pride, known for hunting topies. This is their territory. Soon, though, we head off to look for the Marsh Pride. It's midday now and we've spent most of the morning looking out for big cats. Earlier we saw cheetahs, we also saw a beautiful pride of healthy lions, but we're in luck again because Jackson over here has from a distance spotted the Marsh Pride. They're actually right there under that tree and we're heading there in just a moment. Jackson, you managed to spot this pride from meters away. How do you know that this is the Marsh Pride?
One of the main reasons is actually the territory. Lands, they don't share territories. They're very comfortable around here because if it was a different pride, you could have seen them running away from us. So this is Marsh Pride, and I can tell by looking at the feature. Like the lionesses that we see, is quite an old lioness in the group. That she's about like 9 years old.
How important is the Marsh Pride? We know that this family has featured in several documentaries, but what's the significance of them?
About this pride is one of the successful pride in the Mara and very famous, being shown on the Bika Diary. And when we receive clans, the first thing they say, wow, can we see a lion? He said, yes, we have lions in the Mara. Where's the Marsh Pride? They've been seeing them on documentaries. So that's what makes these lions to be very, very famous. One of the biggest pride around here.
Well, you say it's one of the biggest prides,
yes.
But the number of these lions here under the tree are 5. Yes. So how big is the Marsh Pride right now?
26 lions. And the main reason why we're only seeing few of them, sometimes because of competition. So they end up splitting up into small groups. But later, whenever there's a big prey like a buffalo, they all come together and share. So that's why they're splitting up. And there is some other lionesses with tiny babies, so they're spending my time with the babies, cubs.
You mentioned that, of course, they are a very popular pride and they number in about 26. But we do know that some of the lions were killed relatively recently. They were poisoned. Tell us more about that.
They attack someone cows. Lions are territorial and they can cross the border to the disposal area. That's where we have the villages. They attack the cows and somebody just decided to do it. But it was a wrong thing to do it because the community were not happy. And we were not happy as well. We treat them like our cows as well, because that's why we are employed here. We had to tell the community, and the community were very positive about conservation of wildlife, especially lions. So in the future, we're expecting that nothing else is going to happen again.
You've been a tour guide for almost 10 years now, Jackson. What do these lions mean to you?
They're very important and I really enjoy watching them. It's everything.
They are really, really beautiful just behind you. Let's just spend a bit of time watching these lions. We've actually spent quite a while just admiring these beautiful lions here, the Marsh Pride, but we're about to find out so much more about these individuals. As you can see, there's a vehicle coming towards us. That vehicle has Jackson Lusea inside it. Now, he is a BBC presenter and also a local tour guide here. He co-presented the Big Cat Diary with Jonathan Scott, which many of you perhaps watched years and years ago when it aired on TV. I couldn't help but notice as you drove in and you saw this Marsh Pride, you had a big smile on your face. When you see them, how does it make you feel?
Well, the Marsh Pride, I have known them for the last 20 years. And I have seen this pride changing from, being small or being big, and the dynamic that is involved in the pride. It makes me very happy, particularly in my job as a guide in the Mara, to come into such a powerful pride, friends that I've known, and they have provided a lot to my family and my life.
How have these lions provided to your family?
The Marsh Pride is one of the most well-known pride in Kenya. And the guests that comes on safari to Kenya, most of them have heard of known the Marsh Pride. And therefore, on my daily basis, when I get up on my routine, first thing I think is to see the Marsh Pride. And that is how I get my daily bread, through them.
Jackson, you also co-presented the Big Cat Diary with Jonathan Scott, a BBC documentary. So you have followed the Pride for years and very closely, as you said. Tell us, who are these guys over here? You must know them by name.
Right here, we've got the leader of the Marsh Pride currently. The one sleeping and was looking at us, that's Charm.
The one in the middle?
The one in the middle is right bang in the center of the Marsh Pride. She is the center of attention right now. And the young subs, we have lost one of the females recently. And Sienna, this is one of her cubs lying just side by Charm. And so this is just a small little selection of the Marsh Pride. The rest of them are hidden along the grass.
You mentioned that Charm is now the leader of the Pride. Was Bibi the leader of the Pride before she died?
Yes, Bibi was the leader of the Pride. And this is bang center of her home range. And Bibi, when she died, she just died below here. And luckily, for good luck, for Kenya, and for us people who love the Mara, that Charm was lactating. She had her own cubs in the den. She didn't come that morning. She wouldn't be here right now.
Bibi was one of the lions that was tragically poisoned due to human-wildlife conflict. When you found out about her death, how did that make you feel?
When I found the death of Bibi, I probably was the saddest man in Kenya. These animals are no longer just animals. They are animals that we have known, we have followed. They have provided an economy for the Masai people and for us.
Many people have watched various documentaries about our wildlife, haven't gotten a chance to see them here in Kenya.
I cannot believe that we have to import documentaries of our wildlife from outside the country having been filmed here, right here in the Mara. It really makes me sad that Kenyans don't know enough about our wildlife. In Kenya, we have less than 2,000 lions in the whole entire country. In one of our neighbors' countries here, in one park, they have more than 3,000 lions. We as a country, we as a tribe who lives side by side with lions must protect these animals absolutely. No compromise.
Jackson, thank you so much for your time.
We head back to our place for the night, the wonderful Porini Lion Camp, an eco-camp that generously accommodated us. It's here that we ended day one of our Mara trip.
It is day 2 for the NTV Wild Talk team here in the Masai Mara National Reserve, and right now we're coming to you from the banks of the Mara River. And of course, yesterday we had the chance to view some beautiful big cats, lions and cheetahs. That will be the focus of our conversation this morning. And now my guests join me. They are Moses Kuyonyi, the Chief Park Warden of the Masai Mara National Reserve; Brian Heath, the CEO of the Mara Conservancy, which also manages the Mara Triangle; and Jackson Losea. He is a professional safari guide and a BBC presenter on Big Cat Live. First, have a look at this map of the Masai Mara that breaks it up, and you'll understand this conversation a little bit better. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here in the Masai Mara. It's a pleasure to have you all with us. Now, we do know there are several challenges that face this premier world destination. One of them is cattle grazing. Moses, I'll start with you. Is there any legal cattle grazing allowed in the National Reserve?
Actually, there is no legal grazing in the park. It is quite illegal, but since the park is porous, it's not fenced. The Maasai people, most of the time when they sneak in, they just sneak and go out immediately.
But that obviously has consequences. Brian, 3 of the Marsh Pride lions died from poisoning. You were one of the first respondents to that scene. Tell us what happened.
Cattle in the Mara tend to come in after dark. They come in around 6 p.m. and they leave before dawn. And this has become a sort of an established routine for a lot of people. These cattle were grazing inside the reserve when they were attacked. At least 3 cattle were killed by this pride. The herders and the owners took at least 1 carcass away back to their homestead and laced another carcass with poison. And it was that poison that the lions then came back on and fed that actually resulted in their death.
Jackson, you're one of the people that, of course, knows the huge importance of these big cats. These 3 lions perished, but essentially an entire pride could have been killed off and wiped out because of this poison. What would that have meant?
You have to understand that lions are families. Lions are leaders. They are the protectors and the providers of the cubs. So that particular pride, if it was completely destroyed by that poison case, a lot of places would have suffered economically. If you think that is what brings a lot of people as an attraction to the game reserve, particularly this side, it would have had a massive impact on our economy.
Moses, do we know who these particular individuals were that poisoned the lions? Were they rogue individuals that were resenting the lions and acted rationally or rather irrationally? And also, what is the status of the case now? Because as Brian mentioned, there is a court case going on.
Well, the individuals were known and we managed to arrest 2 of them. And the case is now being handled in the court, so that one we may not go further. But that was an isolated case because of the pain that person felt when his cows were killed by lions. But the rest of the community are really not happy about the matter.
What is the potential outcome of this case? I do understand that not much can be discussed because it is in court, but if they are found guilty, does that mean prison for life?
Absolutely, that is true. The Wildlife Act 2013, if somebody is found guilty of killing a lion or endangered species mostly, will be sentenced life imprisonment or 60 or from 20 million to 60 million fine.
Brian, that is a very harsh penalty, one of the harshest. Why do the community still bring their cattle into the Masai Mara, knowing that there are so many risks?
Partly because of the increase in the human population and the livestock population in this whole region.
Yeah, Brian, I just want to interrupt for a moment because there is a beautiful sight right behind us. An elephant is walking through the Mara River and drinking water. That really is precious, and this really is the beauty of the Masai Mara. I couldn't help but get distracted by that. It's a beautiful sight.
I probably would interact with that with Brian, is that we as Masai people, grass is life. And as you say, with the population increase and we see grass in the game reserve, the risk of going in is worth it. You have to understand that we, as a culture, believe so much in cattle to an extent that we can give our lives for cattle. So if you think that these young men bring cattle in the game reserve with lions in it, with these big elephants, as you can see, in it, and hippo, the risk is high, but they mean to take that risk for the sake of having good grass.
All right, that's a very interesting point. Brian, how do you respond to that? Because from the community perspective, Jackson says it's worth the risk. But from the management perspective and looking at the protection of the wildlife, is it worth the risk?
You know, it's complex. I think that if it wasn't for the Masai people, we wouldn't have the Masai Mara. It's the Masai people and their coexistence with wildlife which has allowed this amazing place to continue. So I think that in time there's going to have to be some understanding. You know, the Masai people are helping conserve large areas outside the protected area, the formerly protected area. These conservancies that have been established outside are very important for this whole ecosystem. And I think at some point there's going to have to be some kind of dialogue about maybe some level of controlled grazing within the reserve that allows people to graze without overly damaging the ecosystem. But livestock and people have been part of this ecosystem for a very long time, and we shouldn't overlook that in many respects.
Moses.
These people need sensitization because of some people doesn't know the consequences of killing wild animals, and we did that. Immediately that incident happened, we took action. We called barazas with the KWS and the community leaders. So we are trying to sensitize the community.
I want to look at the other side because it's not only the community that bring in the cattle and that causes a problem, but these lions and other wild animals as well tend to creep out of the park and go and destroy their cattle and their shambas as well. How big of a problem is that?
The wild animals normally attack domestic animals and even people in their bomas. So that one happens regularly. At least every day we get cases of people attacked by wild animals and also animals killed by predators.
So that happens almost every day?
Almost every day.
We have, right at the moment, we have so much grass in the Mara Triangle that it's not particularly good for the grazing animals. The grazing animals like the shorter grass rather than the tall grass.
And grazing animals, you mean zebras?
The zebras and the topi and so on. So the lions at this time of year tend to go up the escarpment to follow the zebra and topi and giraffe and so on up onto the escarpment. And at the moment we're getting probably a case of cattle being killed by lions every other day.
Wow.
So it happens a lot. What we do is we actually go and photograph the incident, we have a report, and we pay compensation for any cow that is killed by lions that we consider to be our lions.
How much is the
Mara.
compensation?
It's 20,000 shillings per animal killed.
Jackson, is that enough?
I I think the compensation is a great idea, particularly when the cows are out. I mean, when the cows are attacked outside the game reserve. But if they are attacked inside the game reserve, in my opinion, zero compensation. This is the home for those predators and for those animals. And in this case, when the animals are attacked in the boma outside, 20,000, I think is good. Is good enough because it can balance up. There is maybe a cow which is worth 50,000 and there is a calf which is worth 5,000.
We're about to take a break right here on NTV Wild Talk. We're coming to you from the banks of the Mara River here in the Masai Mara National Reserve. First though, time for our wild guest question, a chance for you to win a beautiful prize.
On Wild Guess today we ask, what is the adult cheetah population in the Masai Mara according to the Mara Cheetah Project? What is the adult cheetah population in the Masai Mara according to the Mara Cheetah Project? The first person to answer correctly is spoilt for choice. You'll win 2 complimentary all-inclusive nights for 2 at either Porini Lion Camp or Porini Mara Camp or Porini Amboseli Camp.
Welcome back to NTV Wild Talk, coming to you from the Masai Mara National Reserve. This beautiful setting is the banks of the Mara River. Behind us, hippos, crocodiles and elephants too. But today the focus of the conversation is on the big cats, the lions, the leopards and the cheetahs, and how are we protecting them, because they contribute so much to the ecosystem here in the Mara. First though, a quick reminder of our wild guest question.
On Wild Guess today we ask, what is the adult cheetah population in the Masai Mara according to the Mara Cheetah Project? What is the adult cheetah population in the Masai Mara according to the Mara Cheetah Project? The first person to answer correctly is spoilt for choice. You'll win 2 complimentary all-inclusive nights for 2 at either Porini Lion Camp or Porini Mara Camp or Porini Amboseli Camp.
Our conversation now continues with Moses, Brian and Jackson. Great to still have you with us. Moses, earlier you spoke about sensitization, informing the community about the importance of the big cats in the Masai Mara. Tell us a little bit more about that sensitization program that took place after the poisoning of some of the Marsh Pride lions.
We plan to have barassas in all corners on the areas adjacent to the park. We are trying to educate community on the importance of the wild animals. And also they know, because they are also benefiting directly. They are the ones owning these big facilities, tourist facilities. So they know the importance of wild animals.
Well, what has the response been from the community? Because Jackson earlier said that these Maasai from the community or whoever else it might be are willing to take that risk. But when you sensitize them, did they truly understand and did they respond positively?
Absolutely, they are taking it positively, and they agree to work with us and also to protect wild animals.
Jackson, what was the response of the community when they found out about the poisoning? Because earlier, yesterday, I had a chance to speak to our other tour guide, Jackson, and he said that the community was appalled by the poisoning of the lions. What was the reaction you heard?
Yeah, within the area, particularly bordering the game reserve, this community were so shocked that the lions were poisoned. That was the thing. Poison. A spear is a different thing because you single out an individual animal. Poisoning was devastating for the whole community. And of course the punishment that follows after that you are not able to put a foot into the game reserve that has been the savior in the last drought. And so the people across from Marianta or Larorok all the way across to Talek, they were just crying and said, this man was a bad person. He wasn't the Maasai, true Maasai, for doing such a thing. The agreement over the years has been, if you are to go to the game reserve, do not touch any wild animals. Just leave it the way they are. This is their home. It's yourself who have taken that risk.
The population of Kenya's lions has drastically reduced, and if we compare it, as Jackson told me earlier, to some of our neighboring countries, it's very, very small. What is happening to our big cats?
Human-wildlife conflict plays a very large role in that, I think. I think the decline of big cats over a huge amount of their range is a direct result of this human-wildlife conflict. What we need to do is to ensure that at least our protected areas provide a safe haven for our big cats, come what may.
Moses, why is there no fencing around any of these national parks or game reserves? Because one might think that that's a potential solution, separate the humans from the animals.
Well, it is because it will damage or destroy the natural habitats, and also we don't want to close the wildlife corridors.
Jackson, what impact has the poisoning of these lions had on tourism?
The moment it was news that Bibi has died, Sienna is missing, immediately I had people from all across, from social media, from television, from all over across the world, that why would we go to the Masai Mara? This is what takes us there, and it's no longer there. To them, it was like, it was a big bang. We've lost the stars. And therefore, we had to continuously tell them that, come back. It has happened. In our culture, if it is broken, we bring up the pieces and move on. We don't want this as a repetition, but it's a big impact on our tourism particularly.
But Brian, of course, the survival of these big cats is not only crucial for tourism, but also the ecosystem as a whole. Can you break it down to us and explain why these predators must exist so that all the other animals can exist as well?
Well, obviously they're the sort of top of the food chain, so to speak. But it's very important. You've got your small predators that are feeding on rodents and birds. You've got your medium-sized predators that are feeding on your Thompson's gazelle and impala and so on. You've got your large predators like your lions, which are feeding on your wildebeest and your zebra. It's all part of a balanced ecosystem. You take any one of those components out of the mix and you unbalance the ecosystem.
Moses, what are some of the lessons that have now been learned?
We need to strengthen the patrol within the park, and also to educate the community in order to agree to coexist with the wild animals as usual.
What is really being done to ensure the protection of our cats?
Here in the Mara, as great an area as a formally protected area is under these informal conservancies or informally protected conservancies. They provide an incredible dispersal area for wildlife. They provide income for the landowners. And I think that it's basically by working with these communities that we can sort of strengthen that a bit.
Should that not have already happened by now?
The conservancies themselves are a fairly new thing. I mean, I think the sort of first real conservancies only started 7 or 8 years ago. And there was a real danger then when what was communally owned land in the form of group ranches was subdivided into individually owned parcels of land. And there was a danger that parts of the Mara could end up like Kitengela, where you've got this sort of patchwork of, land holdings with fences around them and people cultivating and setting up homes and so on. And I think that, in fact, by individually owning land, people can actually benefit from the leases on these conservancies. And what looked like it could be a dangerous thing has actually turned into being a beneficial thing. It has now enabled 1,500 people at least to earn a monthly income.
Probably would not agree with anybody who would say, let's say, for example, allow a little bit of cattle grazing in the National Reserve. To me, it's zero. You have to be zero tolerant on cattle coming into the National Reserve. Reason is, these cats are incredibly sensitive. We are losing not only the lions as cats, also the cheetah. We have to think about the cheetah. We have to think about the leopards. These other animals are part of the bigger attraction and the bigger picture of why we need to protect the Mara. And the long grass helps the cheetah to breed. If you have short grass everywhere, they wouldn't have nowhere to breed, and they would just go to the neighboring country. And we don't want that to happen, me personally, as a guide, because those are the things that people want to see.
Brian, I just want to come back to the fencing issue. Is that totally out of the question? Is it totally out of the question to fence any game park or national reserve?
I think it's out of the question to fence the Masai Mara, because some of the iconic species, and the Mara is famous for the migration, you put a fence in, you stop the migration. And you have both the Serengeti migration and you have the loiter migration. We have two migrations that move in and out of the Mara. There's no way you can fence that.
How hopeful are you that the lion population here in the Masai Mara and in Greater Kenya is safe and will survive for generations to come?
I know they are safe, and as we speak now, the Marsh pride has increased. Immediately after the death of 2 lions, one which has disappeared and one died, we have now 6 cubs already. And now I know during the dry spell, the lions get enough food. Unlike now, when the grass are tall, they are now hungry because of the plain game go out of the park instead to the reserve. That's why you see a lot of human-wildlife conflict.
Brian, how positive are you about the future of our African cats?
I think that we will reach a population which stabilizes.
Yeah, we're just having a look at those elephants in the distance again, making sounds, and it looks like the babies have been in the water as well. That's what you get when you come to the Masai Mara, and that's why you need to come to the Masai Mara. Carry on, Brian.
I think that the population will stabilize. It'll stabilize in the protected areas. It'll stabilize on these conservancies which are really developing. It'll stabilize on private land where people are tolerant of living with wildlife. So I believe that the big cats will survive in Kenya. What we have to do is find ways of really incentivizing people to continue to live with wildlife.
The Maasais agreed to establish more conservancies that will create more room for wild animals, especially lions. And you see that in that case, the lions are not disturbed, so they get a better breeding space. So that's how we say they will increase.
Right.
Yeah.
Jackson, tell us why anyone watching should fall in love with our African cats.
Lions is a symbol of power. People love it because they're impressive. If you're to be out on the plains early morning or in the evening and see a big male lion walking across the plains, there is nothing as beautiful as that. It's mystical. It's actually spiritual in a way. So powerful. And not only that, the Mara here without the lion will be nothing. We will be zeros without those big cats. And just to add on what the panels have said, the future is brighter than ever before. Since I've been here and guiding in the Mara for the last 28 years, I have seen the ups and downs. And the lions who are so great in the very beginning of my 20 years of my career, and then they fall before the conservancies were made. Now, after the conservancies have been established, these lions from the conservancies, from Serengeti to the Mara, they're moving in and out, and I've seen the population coming up. It's better than we have ever seen.
That's brilliant. A very, very positive point. Clearly the future is bright. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this discussion. Moses, Brian and Jackson, pleasure to have you with us. This is NTV Wild Talk. Now, here you can find out what to expect coming up on Saturday night on our NTV Wild documentary series.
The family bonds between these ruthless fighters are very strong. But there is also fierce rivalry between them. There's nothing better for a lion than close companionship.
Lions are the king of the jungle, and they're also a global symbol of power. Kenya is the superpower for wildlife tourism, and lions are the key attraction. By no means whatsoever can we afford to lose them. This is NTV Wild Talk with me, Smriti Vidyarthi, coming to you from the Masai Mara National Reserve. Thanks very much for watching. See you Tuesday, 10 p.m. Now, Kenya is a power, what? Kenya is the world's powerhouse. I'm not doing it again.